Greetings, YouTube followers. I can say that because there's more than one. Welcome to the new year for 2021. Very excited to be putting 2020 behind us, even though 2020 was actually a very big year for us as far as a military retirement, big move, buying our first properties, new jobs. It's been a very, very interesting time. Want to talk a little bit today about property management and kind of an update on what's going on with the duplex, and then also kind of what we're doing going forward. Before I get started today, this will be a pretty quick video, but I just want to ask everybody if anything that I'm sending out is worth any information to you whatsoever, helpful and all, please like or subscribe. It helps me, and it helps the YouTube algorithms to make everything work, and it gives me a little bit of a boost to realize that maybe this is helping a couple of you. And that's all I'm really looking forward to do, is just kind of blog, I guess, or vlog how everything is going, what we're doing, and make it something that is worthwhile to everybody. So we took on 2 tenants, and both tenants seem very nice. They're both agreeable. However, they are on no lease, so they are on a month-to-month lease only. Now, when we first when we first bought the duplex, we gave an introduction letter in which we said that we would give them till March to move out, which is more than the 30-day notice that we were required by law, which I thought was the best way that we could do that and best way to handle that. But because they're on a month-to-month lease, we do run the risk of them not paying rent entirely. And so we actually did run into a position in which by the 5th of the month, now there's an app you can pay for that actually allows them to pay it on an app or pay by check. They can even pay by credit card. It just charges a fee, but it allows you to do invoices and a number of other things. And so anyway, it was well worth it to do it last time. But we haven't done it with these, and the main reason why we didn't do it with these 2 tenants is because they'll be moving out here within the next month. So rent didn't show up on the 5th. By law, I'm required to give them notice that we haven't received rent and that they have 10 days to pay. So what we're looking at is the 10-day notice and notification that's required by Indiana law. So when we're dealing with the month-to-month tenant, things change a little bit than when we're dealing with the yearly tenant. When someone's on a lease and they are not required to be moving out, or they've told you that they're giving you notice that they plan on staying for a year, usually if they miss their payment by the 5th, you can usually give them a call, talk to them, even give direct correspondence if need be, something more formal. But we very rarely would go into a notice to vacate or a notice to pay rent or vacate, because their lease is still showing that they plan on being there for months. So you don't really need to be that much of a jerk, I guess, to your tenants. And I never was to our first tenant. So with these 2 tenants, however, they are on a month-to-month lease, and so if they don't pay you by the 5th, there's a big question of, do they plan on paying you at all? Because you don't know if they had moved out, you don't know if they were planning on moving within just a couple days. And so you're forced to then change into a different mindset of, okay, well, it's been the 5th and we haven't received payment. So what I plan to do is go ahead and go in accordance with Indiana law and leave a notice on their door that tells you you have 10 days to pay or vacate. And that's exactly what it says on there. Now, both tenants did pay, and they both apologized for being late. And I told them it wasn't an issue whatsoever. And I'd even waived the late fee because I didn't feel like that was necessarily warranted or needed. You're looking at people who, $25 could be a difference for them. So I wasn't going to enforce that and even try to enforce that. But I did want to make sure that it established precedent, because what we're showing is that if the rent isn't paid, is that we're being very serious and we are following in accordance with Indiana law. So what's important on your notice, if you're doing things like this, is to actually cut and paste from the law and from where it comes from. So this comes from Indiana Code 3231-1. And it says you're notified of the following, and it tells them, hey, you have 10 days to it says you are notified to vacate the following property not more than 10 days after you receive this notice, unless you pay the rent due to the property within 10 days. And that's an exact quote from the Indiana Code. Now, there's also required an execution of the way that this has to be done. It has to be put onto the door or given to them in person. And because it was the middle of the day, we went ahead and just left it on their door. And then we did mail it to them as well, which is what's required by Indiana Code 3231-9. And then we have the declaration of service, in which I then signed it and said that we were going to be sending it out. So it might seem like it's a little much, but this is also why the $25 late fee becomes important, is because there's a lot of bases that have to be covered once the fifth is passed. But we want to show that we're going to do everything above board and legally. I'm not trying to do anything illegal, and I'm not trying to do anything mean. We've given tenants as much leeway as we possibly can. However, tenants, you have to be very, very careful about the way that you run this relationship. If it's looked as too informal, they will believe that they don't necessarily have to pay you and that things can go past certain days. I've kept everything as formal as possible, and we keep everything formal in that regard because of this. It establishes precedent for your tenant that you will follow up. And then whenever they reach out and they apologize, again, I waive the late fee and hey, not a problem. Please don't let it happen again. Rent is due on the 1st. The 5th is a grace period. And that's the way you kind of want to approach those things. But I wanted everybody to see that we had to do this, and we did serve 2 notices just because that is in accordance with the law. So I wanted everybody to see that that's the first portion of what's required for property management. So that's what we've been up to since the first of the year. Beyond that, it's been financing, getting the mortgage all set up for the other property. And then there's been a conversation that I've been trying to work out with tax ramifications on establishing whether or not the LLC will handle property management, and then handle property management on all 3. So then that way we can show that there actually is some income on the property I'm already living in, even though we'd be acting then as a renter. There's tax ramifications because basically I'd be paying myself and then taxing myself, only to then turn around and pay myself and tax myself. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. However, what it does is that it starts to establish that the LLC has these 3 different tenants or 2 different properties, and we can start to show that the LLC starts to generate income. So it becomes kind of a double-edged sword, and I think that we're probably going to do that. Everything needs to be done as above board as possible whenever you're dealing with financing. When you finally want to sit down and get underwriting done and you want to talk to mortgage lenders, they want to see that you are detailed on everything within your books. So I'm trying to go through as much as I can and make sure that we're being as detailed as possible and getting everything ready to go forward with the renovations on the duplex, and to make sure that we're setting up everything for the LLC to be as profitable as possible going forward, so that way that their mortgage lending and everything can start to change gears from personal backing into the LLC into more of a portfolio backing. I'll get into some of that stuff later because the financing really becomes really interesting, especially as we start to look at taking on other investors and start looking at other possibilities going forward. But this is really the key things that I wanted to go through for today.